And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
In the prior episode 2 weeks ago, I announced that this week's guest would be actor Tommy Sadusky. Tommy will actually be joining us next week. This week, we're privileged to have on the show John Flynn. John worked in the television industry for many years before creating his own theater company called Rogue Machine. Rogue Machine concentrates on plays by new American writers, and the writers the company has produced over the years have included John Polono, Henry Murray, and Kemp Powers. John Flynn, welcome to Animal Farm.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you and your experience of decades. We were just chatting before the show began, and there are a couple of issues. There's, it seems to me, two things happening. One is an extraordinary kind of unity and a sense of things being accomplished, and I would like to talk about that. And you also talked about an almost unparalleled divisiveness that is in large part due to the frustrations of the coronavirus and the pandemic, and everybody's livelihood and actually reason for being, if you're a creative artist, has been really put on hold, and that has created some kind of anger. But I must say I've noticed this divisiveness before the pandemic, and I was just wondering if I could have your thoughts on why we can't seem to have civil conversations. Is it just our theater community, or is it the society at large?
Well, we certainly can't have civil conversations in the society at large. And, the divisiveness in the society at large has, been exacerbated in the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that, the effects of Donald Trump's presidency is perhaps, people feel like they have a license to act out in ways that sometimes, at least, I hate to sound like an old person now, although you can see that I am, but, we were, think twice, speak once,
Yeah.
We were taught to have some sort of reticence about, when was it proper and when is it right, and when are what my personal needs are important enough to actually be expressed. And sometimes obviously they are.
Yes.
And sometimes they aren't. But I find that COVID has certainly, first of all, because we're all bored, there's nothing to do. I mean, we make these attempts to do projects that are online. We've all done some of them. And, to a certain extent, some of them are satisfying. Many aren't. I don't find the form very pleasing. And, I do know that some people have found some interesting workarounds. I haven't seen what Greg Daniel has directed for the Road Theater Company, which is sort of kind of like a live film. And I'm actually scheduled to watch it later today, and that's exciting. But it's not, whatever it is and however good it is, it's not live theater. And also the circumstances in which we create, we are, as a community, a collective. And, when you are a collective, when you work in collaboration, but you're divided by computer screens as we are now, there's it's always a step backwards, and there's always a distancing. When I watch things that were created to be live theater on the internet, on a streaming sort of thing, generally, you know, I feel that distancing. I don't feel the same kind of investment from, you know, that I would like to feel when I'm sitting in a theater. I will say that there is a program called Staged, which came out of England, which was a Zoom program that you can see on Hulu. That's fabulous. And it's one of the few things that I've seen that really were fabulous. Somehow they conquered the format.
Well, that is encouraging. Are you able to, we're having such mixed messages about reopenings and variants and what's on and what's off. And what's really been sabotaged for the last year is the ability to schedule anything, especially anything public. How are you handling that with Rogue Machine?
Well, we continue to be luckier than we perhaps deserve to be as a single entity, in that our season happened to end March 1st of 2020. And our new season was to begin in early July. So we went on hiatus on March 1st. And we had not signed a contract for a venue, you know, for a thing. So by the time that theaters were closed, we were essentially not contracted anywhere. So we've had the real fortune of not having to deal with landlords.
Those cost overhead and that cost.
Yeah, and rent. And, you know, I will say that as far as I know, many of the landlords within the city have been, especially for the theaters, have been really very helpful and doing their best to keep us alive. But still, you know, the piper has to be paid eventually.
Yeah.
And so
Rogue Machine has actually, right now you're a gypsy company, but you have the resources to eventually find a home once you know that you can do something.
Yeah, exactly. So that gives kind of an extra kind of freedom, and you know, we continue to read plays. We had a season that had been chosen for, you know, for what would have been our 13th season, which was to begin, or was it our 14th? I don't remember now. Anyway, it was to begin in July. And some of those plays we're still interested in doing. And they included Justin Tanner, a new Justin Tanner piece, you know, which was cast and was going to be our first production. So, you know, we can get back to the theater. We can be in production once we settle on which venue we're going to use within 2.5 months at most. And yeah, we have the resources, because a number of the funding organizations have been just sort of fabulous. The Schubert Foundation has continued to fund us. The city and the county governments have been very supportive. And
well, this is good news.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm in desperate need for good news right now.
Yeah. So we have the wherewithal to we can move in and get started pretty quickly, depending on what kind of regulations and such come from the health departments and what those mean for specific venues.
Right, which
You
is
know,
to be determined, which you never
it
know.
is to be determined, and
Yeah.
it changes too.
Yeah.
It's become less onerous as as the epidemic has begun to wind down, and it may get less onerous still. Right now, there are large issues about air handling and, uh, some of the older buildings, and certainly I would have to think Broadway, could be looking at major renovations if they were to try to attempt what some of the health departments are thinking that they might want to
Yeah.
enforce. So we'll have to see how that works out. But I think it will. I think eventually, if you just wait, it'll all come back to near normal. We're ready to begin production in October or so. If that happens, we're ready to begin production in February. If that happens,
Sure.
we're sort of ready, but still, the waiting is really difficult to endure.
I would like to end on a positive note, but I'm not ready to end yet
Okay.
because I wanted to ask you one more ruminative question about perspective. And you came in from the TV industry to run a theater. And as that goes, your accomplishments have been absolutely remarkable. The quality of the productions it goes unquestioned. The vision of the theater goes unquestioned. So you have received enormous accolades for your work, but we don't always do it for accolades. We do it for something inside. My question is, here we sit in April of 2021. Was it worth it? Or is it still worth it?
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's a question I often ask myself, and it gets way down to why are you alive? What is life? What should
Yes.
we?
Oh, that yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. What should one do in order to feel like one has lived their life?
Yeah.
And I would say that Rogue Machine has been worth it because of the tremendous opportunities that it has presented to a really talented community. I mean, I've talked to you before about why and how we started the theater, but part of why I started the theater was there were two things going on. One is after I got finished with the last series I was on, I started going to theater a little bit more because I had a little bit more time, and I saw extraordinary actors. I mean, truly extraordinary. I saw Matt Elkins and Tracy Lockwood in a two-person play, and I was astonished. It was as good a work as I'd seen anywhere in the world. And I learned from talking to them that they didn't have a lot of opportunity to actually do their work. And at the same time, I had met a young playwright named John Flynn, and we produced his first play on a shoestring budget in a rental house, and hardly anyone came, and it was wonderful nonetheless. And I went around town sort of thinking maybe I would be an itinerant director, and I asked theater companies. Theater companies would ask me, "So what do you want to direct?" And I had another play of John's. I had Henry Murray's first play, and nobody would produce those plays because they were new plays. And it wasn't that no one was producing new plays in Los Angeles, but in 2007 and 2008, there were very few new plays being produced. And those that were being produced were often produced at like the Ford in the summer under the space and places like that. And, you know, by theater companies that did one play a year. And we decided we wanted to do, to produce full seasons because, and we wanted to be a theater where these wonderful actors could work, but we also wanted to be a theater where playwrights could, you know, do new work and where we could work on new work. Because, you know, all those adages, the voices of tomorrow, the classics of tomorrow, or the new plays of today. And, you know, throughout the years, we've done, I don't know, you know, 25 or so new plays. That's been very satisfying. And, you know, I mean, of course, three of our plays actually have gone on to become feature films and gone to New York and London and all sorts of places. One, of course, was Kemp Powers' One Night in Miami, which has become, you know, and you know, one could say that you know, when I first talked to Kemp, what was so impressive is what he told me was what he wanted to do was write stories that would provide role models for young Black men. And he's done that. And he did that, you know, immediately. And he did it, you know, obviously wonderfully well. And so one could say that Rogue Machine was paid off just from that. But we've also got John Polano and his the small engine repair, which I'm sure you'll remember was a sensation in the theater, is now a feature film. It's going to be released in the fall. I've seen it. It's extraordinary. And John not only wrote it, he directed it, and he did a fabulous job.
That is exactly what our small theater is supposed to do. It's supposed to be a stepping stone to other cities and also to other genres. So
yeah, it's an incubator, and I like to talk about that because, you know, not that it did me any good, but when we talked when we had all our talks and eventually lost our battle with equity, it was the thing I kept saying to them. You understand, this thing that you inadvertently created has this intrinsic value to the ecosystem of theater.
Yes.
In that there's a place for things to begin, you know. I mean, if there were only big regional theaters, I'm not sure that some of the plays that we've become famous for would have ever been done.
Yep. Yeah.
You know.
I'd like to jump to, which is the final question. As you mentioned, a couple of programs that are really doing well in terms of fighting existential threats to exactly the kind of programming that you're talking about. One of them is through TIPLA, and you've also mentioned their fight against Assembly Bill 5, and also, Martha Dempsey is also, the alternative
theater program. Yeah, I mean, part of what's come out of this sort of enforced hiatus has been the ability for us to talk to one another. I think that we had to learn what everybody else was thinking. We could not make decisions as single entities because there was just not enough information. And so two things have happened. One was the Theatrical Producers League of Los Angeles, which started years ago with some real, we need this, it's going to do us great, and then more or less laid dormant for all the years until now, has become instrumental in this community's fight to survive. And you know, it's kind of like strange. It's almost like victimhood, but AB5, which is the bill that people talk about, and I'm not as conversant with it as some people will be, so I may get some things wrong, but at the heart, I know what I know, which is that the idea of it was that Lyft drivers and Uber drivers should be on salary. And so they wrote this bill to force people to make these kind of people employees, but they made it a wide sweeping bill.
Right.
And it swept up small artists, musicians.
Well, the irony is now in 2021, there was a proposition on the November ballot in which exempted the Uber and Lyft drivers, which are exactly the industries it was designed to address. And the people left holding the bags are, of course, the nonprofit arts organization.
Yeah, and the artists who, you know, most work that artists have is gig work. So, you know, and then most of the organizations that employ those artists and gig work can't really afford to be.
Well, I just wanted to say the artist gig work is not being, the funds are not being dispersed by multi-million-dollar corporations. So
that's right.
That's the one tiny little distinction that failed to be made in the drafting of this legislation. You wish they would just kind of think this through, you know, before they put this stuff out there.
Well, I find that the understanding of the finances of small arts organizations is woefully inexact anywhere, not only outside of the community, but often inside of the community. People don't really understand how a theater like Rogue Machine functions, that in fact, we are totally dependent upon the kindness of strangers, that, you know, 60 to 70% of our funding is unearned income.
Sure.
You know, in good years, it drops to 50 or 55%. In bad years, it goes up to 68%.
And this has been a very, very bad year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, you know, we all have talked until we're sick of talking about it, about how the arts are underfunded in this country. And, you know, one of the things that I'm holding out a small amount of hope for is that this pandemic and the ways in which the government is now addressing, trying to offer remedies that will help the infrastructure of the entire, you know, communities. They may. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, wouldn't it be great if there was like a works program or some other kind of programs that would focus on helping artists get paid?
Yeah.
Because we all know that how much the arts generate other income. You know, everybody makes money from the theater, but theater people. I've been saying this to people, and it's unfortunately true. I've discovered how to make money in theater is not to do theater. Because this year I have more in my bank account, Rogue Machine's bank account, than we've had in a long time, which is great for when we get back. But
That's
were I doing
great
theater,
advice
I'd be desperate.
for theater administrators. You take any action, you lose. Put on a play, you lose. Just keep
That's
your
right,
feet
yeah.
open and just don't do any plays. You'll make a lot.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Good. So there is a concerted effort led in some ways by Vanessa Stewart to create outcomes, and there's now legislation that's on its way to Sacramento, and the lobbying effort is now in to exempt nonprofit companies that have budgets of less than, I think it's $1.9 million. That's the new bill. And
Yeah,
so we're staking our hopes on that. But
yeah, that's what the TIPLA, the Theatrical League, has really been focusing on, and led very capably by author Martha Dimson. They've worked
Yes.
in tandem and with a number of other people that, even though I don't mention you, I'm very grateful for the work everyone is doing to fight this off.
Right.
I mean, I would like nothing better, and I think I speak for all not-for-profit producers. I'd like nothing better than to have enough money to pay people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to pay people.
I think
And
those producers do. Yeah.
yeah, and we have moved, slowly, much more slowly than I ever hoped we would over the years, to give people more, almost every year I've increased what we're able to give to our artists, either in some kind of compensation for their work or their own expenses, or whatever form we need to take in order to see to get those funding.
Yeah.
So, if we could find a way here, if there is any way to increase the funding that goes to the arts organizations, and even if it's very much pointed to, here's this funding, but you have to use it for artists, that would be,
It'll be fantastic.
it would be delightful. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. So my question was, they get the funding, do they actually pass it along to the creative people in an equitable way? And that's really what the equity fight was about, and that's the question. So if that could be legislated in, that the actors get protected and the designers get protected, and as well as the producers, so everybody's interests are met. But that's the art of negotiation. So
Well, hopefully, let's see what happens.
John Flynn, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Next week, we're joined by actor Thomas Sadowski, who is best known for his roles as Don Kiefer in the HBO series The Newsroom, and as Matt Short on the television, a sitcom series, Life in Pieces. On the stage in 2008, he originated the role in Greg in Neil LaBute's Reasons to Be Pretty for MCC Theatre, alongside The Newsroom co-star Alison Pill. After a critically lauded sold-out run off-Broadway, it transferred to Broadway in April 2009, where it earned 3 Tony Award nominations, including Best Actor for Sadowski. In 2011, he originated the role of Trip Wyeth in John Robbie Bates's play Other Desert Cities, for which he won an Obie Award and a Lucille Lortel Award. The play, which also sold out off-Broadway, was transferred to Broadway in November of 2011.